The emergency signal cut through the peaceful hum of the Galactic Council chambers like a knife through silk. Commander Kex's voice, normally steady and diplomatic like all Zeridians, now shook with terror that made every alien in the room stop breathing. 3 entire star systems in the Outer Rim are gone. Not destroyed, gone. It's consumed down to the last asteroid, the last speck of dust. The holographic display flickered, showing the aftermath of worlds that had housed billions of lives just days before. Where lush planets once orbited their suns, only empty space remained.
Ow.
The mechanical swarms had eaten everything, converting matter into more of themselves with terrifying efficiency. Our combined defense fleets engaged them at Kepler Station, Kex continued, his transmission breaking up as explosions echoed in the background. 17 different species, our best weapons, our finest warriors. They lasted 6 hours. The machines learned from every shot we fired, adapted to every strategy we used. By the end, our weapons were useless. Ambassador Vex of the Aquarian Alliance leaned forward, his normally blue skin now pale gray with fear. His people had been traitors and diplomats for thousands of years, never knowing real warfare. None of them had. How many ships did we lose? He whispered. All of them, came the reply that made the entire chamber gasp. Every single vessel. The Devourers took our technology, our battle plans, even our communication codes. They know everything we know now, and they're using it against us. The transmission crackled again. Through the static, they could hear the sound of metal tearing, of ancient machines grinding through whatever stood in their way. Kex's breathing was ragged now. They're not just weapons, they're a plague. Each destroyed ship becomes material for 10 more Devourers. Each conquered world feeds their expansion. We estimate they'll reach the core systems within 30 rotations. At their current growth rate, Council Leader Nyx sat in stunned silence, all 4 of his eyes closed, as he processed the impossible situation. His species, the Valdari, had maintained galactic peace for 3 centuries through careful diplomacy and trade agreements. Violence was something they read about in ancient history files, not something that threatened their modern civilization. Our evacuation ships are already overloaded. Kex's voice was fading now. Billions of refugees with nowhere to go. The Outer Rim colonies are falling faster than we can count them. Traditional weapons don't work. Energy shields are useless. Even our most advanced AI systems can't predict their movements because they evolve too quickly. The sound of approaching mechanical screams filled the transmission. Kex's final words were barely audible above the noise of his world ending. Anyone receives this message, don't try to fight them conventionally. They learn too fast. You need something they've never seen before, something completely different. You need warriors, not diplomats. You need predators, not prey. May the void help us all. The transmission cut to static, leaving 300 of the galaxy's most powerful leaders sitting in complete, terrified silence. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ambassador Zell had spoken the unthinkable, and every alien in the chamber recoiled as if he had suggested releasing a plague upon themselves. We need the Deathworlders, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of desperation. Ambassador Vex shot to his feet, his fins flaring in outrage. Absolutely not. The humans are quarantined for good reason. Have you forgotten the reports from their first contact attempts? They're unstable, violent, completely unpredictable. And that's exactly what we need right now. Zell shot back his calm demeanor cracking. Look around this chamber, Vex. What do you see? Diplomats, traitors, scientists. We've spent 300 years building a peaceful civilization. Now we're all going to die because we don't know how to fight, murmurs. A fear rippled through the council. Most species present had never seen real combat. Their worlds were gardens compared to the nightmare planet that had spawned humanity. Council Leader Nyx leaned forward. Explain yourself, Zell. Why would we risk everything on those savages? Zell activated his personal display, showing classified files that made several council members gasp. Stable climates, abundant food, gentle gravity. We developed intelligence through cooperation and trade. The display shifted to show Earth, a blue marble spinning in space that looked deceptively peaceful. The humans crawled out of a hell planet, where everything tried to kill them. Predators that hunted in packs, whether that could freeze them solid or boil them alive. Diseases that wiped out entire populations. Natural disasters that reshaped continents. They're monsters, whispered Ambassador Crix, her voice shaking. No, Zell replied firmly. They're survivors. Do you know what humans call their planet? Home. A world that would kill any of us in hours. And they call it home. They didn't just survive there, they thrived. They turned a Deathworld into their hunting ground. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded immediate evacuation of their core worlds. Others suggested surrender might be preferable to unleashing humans on the galaxy. But with each passing minute, another distress signal arrived from the outer rim. They've consumed. The Ultrian colonies reported in aid, his voice breaking. 15 billion souls. Gone. The curve in defense grid has fallen, came another report. The machines are adapting faster than predicted. Vex slammed his appendage on his console. Even if we wanted to contact them, the humans don't have space travel. They're stuck on their one planet, probably killing each other as we speak. Wrong, Zell said quietly, bringing up another file that made the entire council fall silent. They've been watching us for decades. They have ships, military ships. And according to our deep space monitoring stations, they've been preparing for war since the day they detected our first transmissions. The implications hit everyone at once. While the galaxy had been building trade routes, humans had been building weapons. Council leader Nyx closed all four eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. Around him, the greatest minds in galactic civilization waited in silence. As more worlds died every hour, finally, he spoke the words that would change everything. Send the message to Sol 3. The holographic message had appeared in Earth's skies without warning, broadcasting simultaneously to every major military installation on the planet. Admiral Jin stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the alien transmission for the 5th time, trying to process what humanity had just learned. First contact. After decades of searching the stars, wondering if they were alone, the answer had finally come. And it wasn't a greeting or an invitation to join some galactic community. It was a desperate cry for help. They're terrified, Commander Eunice said. Studying the biometric readings from the alien speaker, look at these stress indicators. Whatever they're running from has them completely panicked. Jin nodded, watching the aliens for eyes dart nervously as he spoke about something called devourers. The translation software struggled with some concepts, but the message was clear enough. Ancient machines had awakened and were eating entire star systems. Billions were dying, and conventional weapons were useless. Analyze the tactical data they provided, Jin ordered. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. It's the main screen filled with battle footage that made even seasoned military officers pause. Sleek alien warships, beautiful and elegant, were being torn apart by swarms of mechanical creatures that moved like living things. The machines adapted in real time, learning from every attack and becoming stronger. Sir, this is incredible, Lieutenant Minho called from the data analysis station. These alien fleets are massive. The footage showed alien vessels maintaining perfect formations, firing in coordinated patterns, retreating when damaged. It was textbook space. Combat. Clean and organized. They fight like it's a chess game, Yuna observed. Predictable. No wonder the machines learned to counter them so quickly. Jin studied the alien ship designs, noting their smooth curves and minimal armor. These were ships built by a peaceful civilization, designed more for exploration and trade than warfare. Beautiful, but fragile. Technology transfers, trade agreements, territory rights. They're hiring exterminators. That realization hit the bridge crew like cold water. Humans weren't being invited to join the galactic community as equals. They were being recruited as weapons, disposable soldiers to fight a war the aliens couldn't win themselves. Sir, Communications Officer Day spoke up, we're receiving similar messages at installations worldwide. The aliens sent this to every military force on Earth simultaneously. Jin almost smiled at that. While the aliens debated for hours before making their desperate decision, they had been thorough. They understood that humans didn't have a single unified command structure, so they had contacted everyone who might be able to fight. Prep the fleet, Jin ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 30 years preparing for the unknown. Signal the retribution, the vengeance, and the fury. Alert all department heads for immediate deployment briefing. Ma'am, Yuna asked quietly, shouldn't we consult with the Global Defense Council first? Jin looked at the tactical data one. More time. Entire civilizations were dying while aliens held committee meetings. Earth didn't have time for bureaucracy. We're going to war, Commander. The talking can wait until after we've won. The alien staging area had been a hive of nervous activity for days. Evacuation ships loaded with refugees streamed away from the outer rim territories, their elegant forms reflecting the soft lights. Of the command stations, species from across the galaxy worked together in careful coordination, following protocols that had kept peace for centuries. Then the human fleet arrived, and everything stopped. The first thing that struck everyone was the sound, where alien ships moved in whisper-quiet grace. The human vessels announced their arrival with the deep rumble of massive engines that seemed to shake space itself. Their jump signatures were violent, tearing holes in reality rather than slipping. Through it gently, Captain Kex watched through his viewport, his normally steady hands trembling as he took in the sight. By the void, he whispered to his bridge crew, "Look at those ships!" Where every alien vessel in the staging area was a work of art. Flowing lines and smooth curves that spoke of centuries of peaceful engineering, the human ships looked like. They had been designed by someone who expected to fight for every breath. Angular, brutal, and covered in thick armor plating that made them look more like flying fortresses than exploration vessels. "Are those ... weapons?" asked his science officer, pointing at the massive gun batteries that jutted from every surface. "Those are just the ones we can see," Kex replied grimly, noting the way the human formation moved. Even in what appeared to be a casual approach, their ships maintained overlapping fields of fire in defensive positions. These weren't explorers or diplomats. These were hunters. The communication channels crackled to life as Commander Tay's voice cut through the careful diplomatic chatter that had filled the airwaves for hours. "This is Admiral Jin of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. We're here about your machine problem. Direct us to the enemy." The blunt military precision of the message sent ripples of shock through the alien command structure. No formal greetings, no diplomatic protocols, no careful introduction to galactic customs. Just a simple question that cut straight to the heart of the matter. Ambassador Vex scrambled to respond, his training in diplomatic courtesy making him stutter. "Honored humans, we welcome you to our staging area. Perhaps we should begin with a formal briefing on galactic protocols and negative." Admiral Jin's voice cut through his speech like a blade. "Show us where the enemy is. We'll figure out the rest later." While the aliens continued their careful evacuation procedures and emergency committee meetings, the humans were already moving. Reconnaissance probes launched from their ships, heading straight into Devour-controlled space with a recklessness that made every alien observer hold their breath. "They're scanning active war zones," Captain Kex reported in disbelief. "Without shields, without escort, without any kind of safety protocol." His communications officer looked up from her station, her face pale. "Sir, they're treating this like a standard military operation. They've already identified 17 target zones and are requesting ammunition resupply coordinates." The humans had been in system for less than an hour, and they were already treating the galaxy's greatest existential threat like just another enemy to be destroyed. The scout ship. Shadow drifted silently through the graveyard that had once been the Kepler colony. Captain Han kept his breathing steady as he watched the scanner display, tracking the movements of Devourer patrols through the debris field, where millions of colonists had lived just weeks ago. Only twisted metal and floating wreckage remained. "Count 12 active units sweeping the area," whispered Lieutenant Rin from her position at the sensor station. Han nodded, studying the mechanical creatures through the ship's telescopic display. Each Devourer was roughly the size of a fighter craft, but they moved with an organic fluidity that made his skin crawl. Their surface constantly shifted, adapting to whatever task they were performing. His voice barely audible even on the secure channel. "No, Han replied grimly. They're learning. Every piece of debris tells them something about our technology, our weaknesses, our capabilities. The Shadow continued its careful approach, using the wreckage of destroyed alien vessels as cover. Han had spent 15 years piloting stealth missions in Earth's most dangerous zones, but this felt different. These machines weren't just weapons. They were predators with artificial intelligence that grew stronger with every encounter. There, Rin pointed to her display, highlighting a damaged Devourer unit trapped beneath a section of destroyed space station. Its communication array looks damaged. Han studied the target, calculating approach vectors and escape routes. The machine was wedged between two large pieces of debris, its usual fluid movements reduced. Two weak twitches as it tried to free itself. Can we extract it without alerting the others? He asked. Rin confirmed. The capture operation required split-second timing. Using magnetic clamps and containment fields, the human team managed to secure the damaged. Devour and retreat before the patrol units could investigate. The entire extraction took less than 8 minutes. Back aboard the UES Defiant, Chief Engineer Wu had the captured machines secured in the main laboratory, surrounded by every scanning device the ship carried. Alien scientists from 6 different species watched in fascination as the human engineer worked, using tools and techniques they had never seen before. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Kex, the Zeridian xenobiologist. We've been studying these creatures for weeks, but your approach is completely different. He didn't care how it worked, only how to break it. Hive mind structure, Wu announced after 3 hours of analysis, his hands covered in machine oil and his eyes bright with discovery. Central processing core, distributed learning matrix. They're smart, definitely, but they think like a network, not individuals. Admiral Jin leaned forward. Can we exploit that? Shh. Wu grinned, an expression that made every alien observer take a step back. There was something predatory in that smile, something that reminded them why humans had earned their reputation as Deathworlders. Oh yes, Admiral. But we need to move fast. These things learn from every encounter we have with them. Galactic Council held its 7th emergency session in 3 days, debating evacuation routes and defensive perimeters. Admiral Jin was planning something the galaxy had never witnessed before. The main briefing room aboard the UES Defiant buzzed with activity as fleet commanders gathered around the tactical display. Simultaneous strikes on 17 systems, Jin announced, her finger tracing attack routes across the star map. Hit them everywhere at once. Maximum aggression, no mercy. Captain Kai studied the battle plan with growing concern. Admiral, we don't have enough ships for that kind of operation. We'd be spreading our forces impossibly thin. Standard military doctrine says, forget standard doctrine. Gin interrupted, her voice cutting through the room like steel. We don't need enough ships. We need enough chaos. These machines think in patterns, learn from repetition, adapt to predictable strategies. We're going to give them so many variables they can't process them all. Commander Yuna pulled up the intelligence reports from Engineer Wu's analysis. The Devourers share information instantly across their network. Every battle teaches the entire swarm, but that's also their weakness. Exactly, Jin confirmed. They're like a giant computer trying to solve multiple equations at once. Overload the system, and it starts making mistakes. The alien observers in the room looked horrified. Ambassador Vex spoke up, his voice shaking. This is suicide. You're talking about attacking on 17 fronts simultaneously with insufficient forces? Every military strategist in the galaxy would call this madness. Good, Jin replied with a cold smile. Because if our own allies think it's crazy, imagine what the machines will think. The human fleet commanders studied their individual assignments. Each hunting pack consisted of 3 to 5 ships, barely enough to take on a single Devourer concentration under normal circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. Rules of engagement are simple, Jin continued. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stop hitting. When conventional tactics say retreat, we advance. When logic says defend, we attack. We're going to be completely unpredictable. Captain Min raised his hand. What about casualties? We're talking about enormous risks here. Jin's expression grew serious. Every hour we waste debating strategy, another billion aliens die. The Devourers aren't slowing down to hold committee meetings. Neither are we. The fleet dispersed within hours, splitting into hunting packs that headed for different corners of Devourer space, while alien evacuation ships continued their careful retreat. Human vessels charged straight into active war zones. The first reports came in just 6 hours later. Human forces were engaging Devourer swarms across 17 different systems simultaneously. The machines, which had adapted flawlessly to alien tactics for weeks, suddenly found themselves facing opponents who seemed to ignore every rule of warfare. Where aliens had retreated when outnumbered, humans attacked. Where conventional wisdom demanded defensive positions, human ships kept moving and kept shooting, where logic said to conserve forces. Humans threw everything they had into each engagement. The Devourer network, designed to learn from patterns and predict enemy behavior, began to struggle. For the first time since Awakening, the ancient machines encountered something they couldn't immediately understand: organized chaos. Directed by minds that treated impossible odds as just another challenge to overcome, it was madness by galactic standards. But it was working. Captain J's destroyer drifted through the battle zone like a wounded animal, but a wounded animal that refused to die. Half the ship's hull had been torn away by Devourer weapons, exposing entire sections to the vacuum of space. Life support was failing on 6 decks. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows through the smoke-filled corridors, but the weapons were still functional. That was all Captain J needed. Another salvo, targeting the cluster formation, he ordered calmly, as if his ship wasn't minutes away from complete structural failure. Ambassador Nix, the alien observer assigned to monitor human combat effectiveness, gripped his safety harness. With all 4 hands, the rational part of his mind screamed that this was insane. "Your ship is dying," he gasped, watching hull plates peel away like flower petals. "Your crew is in danger. Why don't you retreat?" Jay glanced at him with the same expression a human might give to someone who asked why they didn't stop breathing. "Because they haven't destroyed our weapons yet. As long as we can shoot, we keep shooting." The destroyer's main guns fired again, sending plasma bolts into the Devourer swarm, despite the ship shaking apart around them. Through the gaping holes in the hull, Nix could see crew members working in vacuum suits, manually loading ammunition and rerouting power cables while floating. In zero atmosphere, across the CUM channels, similar reports echoed from other human vessels. Commander Sue's voice crackled through the static, her heavy cruiser barely holding together as she updated her fleet status. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. Main power offline, life support down to 30%. Switching to backup. Fusion reactors and continuing the attack? Acknowledged, came Admiral Jin's response. All ships maintain assault pattern. We're not done yet. Nix watched in growing amazement as human crews performed tasks that should have been impossible. When their ships lost artificial gravity, they kept fighting in weightless conditions. When hull breaches exposed them to space, they sealed themselves in pressure suits and continued working. When their main computers failed, they switched to manual targeting and kept firing. "How?" Nix whispered, watching a human engineer crawl through a corridor filled with toxic fumes to restore power to the weapons array. "How do you function under these conditions?" Lieutenant Park, monitoring the bridge sensors, despite a head injury that would have incapacitated most aliens, looked up from his station. "This is normal for us. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Extreme weather, deadly predators, natural disasters, diseases that wiped out entire populations. We learned to adapt or die." The realization hit Nix like a physical blow. While other species had evolved unstable, peaceful worlds where cooperation and intelligence were rewarded, humans had been forged in a crucible where only the most stubborn survivors passed on their genes. They weren't just warriors fighting a desperate battle. They were the descendants of creatures who had looked at a world full of things trying to kill them and decided to make it their home anyway. "We don't retreat because something's difficult," Jay explained, ordering yet another weapons barrage despite his ship's critical condition. "We retreat when we're dead, and sometimes not even then. The deep space scanning results sent a chill through the combined fleet command. After weeks of tracking Devourer movements, the source had finally been located, and it was in the worst possible place imaginable. "The Nexus is here," Chief Navigator Lee announced, highlighting a region of space that made every alien officer step back from the display. Binary star system, both stars collapsing simultaneously. The gravitational forces alone would crush most ships before they got within weapons range. Admiral Keck studied the readings with growing horror. The radiation levels were beyond anything in their databases. "It's a death trap," he warned Jin, his voice trembling. "No ship can survive those conditions. The radiation would cook any crew alive in minutes. The gravitational stress would tear holes apart like paper." "Human ships can," Jin replied grimly, studying the tactical display with the cold calculation of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for impossible missions. "We build everything to survive the worst-case scenario." The alien observers watched in disbelief as Admiral Jin began assembling a volunteer force. 12 heavy cruisers, the pride of Earth's deep space fleet, each one built like a fortress, designed to withstand conditions that would destroy most civilizations. "You're talking about flying directly into a stellar graveyard," Ambassador Vex protested. "The gravitational shear alone will tear your ships apart. No vessel can withstand those forces." Commander Yuna pulled up the engineering specifications for human warships, comparing them to alien designs. Where alien vessels were elegant and efficient, human ships were overbuilt to an almost ridiculous degree. Triple redundant systems, ultra-dense armor plating, shielding designed to protect against the worst radiation Earth's own star could produce. "We don't build ships to work perfectly," she explained to the stunned aliens. "We build them to keep working when everything goes wrong." The volunteer fleet moved out within hours, 13 vessels, heading toward what every tactical computer classified as certain death. As they approached the dying star system, the first effects became visible. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around them, reality warping under gravitational forces that defied imagination. "Radiation levels increasing," reported scanner operator Kim from the lead cruiser. "We're already at lethal levels for most organic species." "Acknowledged," Jin responded calmly. "All ships, seal internal compartments, and switch to emergency life support. We're going in." The human fleet pressed deeper into the maelstrom, their ultra-dense shielding absorbing radiation that would have vaporized alien vessels instantly. When gravitational stress began tearing at their hulls, the ships held together through sheer over-engineering and the stubborn refusal of their crews to accept defeat. "Target acquired," Jin announced, as they finally penetrated the innermost defensive layer. The Devourer Nexus loomed before them, a massive construct feeding off the energy of the dying stars themselves. "All ships target the Nexus core," she commanded, her voice carrying across the fleet channels. "Make every shot count. We're not leaving here until this thing is dead." The explosion started as a single point of brilliant light deep within the dying star system, then expanded outward. At impossible speeds, the Nexus detonation sent shockwaves rippling through subspace itself, carrying a signal that reached every corner of the galaxy within moments, and suddenly, across 17 star systems. The Devourer swarms simply stopped, not defeated, not retreating, but completely and instantly dead. Millions of mechanical predators that had consumed entire worlds just froze in space, their adaptive intelligence cut off like a switch being flipped, where moments before an unstoppable plague had threatened galactic extinction. Now only lifeless metal husks drifted in the void. The silence across the comm channels was deafening. After weeks of constant battle reports and desperate evacuation calls, the sudden absence of emergency signals felt almost supernatural. In the aftermath, as rescue ships cautiously approached the stellar graveyard where the human fleet had made their final assault, they expected to find nothing but debris. The radiation levels alone should have killed any survivors hours ago. Instead, they found Admiral Jin's cruiser, the UES Defiant, gutted but somehow still intact. Half the ship was gone, exposing twisted corridors to the vacuum of space. The hull was scorched black by radiation that would have vaporized most vessels. and gravitational stress had bent the superstructure into impossible shapes. But life support was still functioning in the core sections. And the crew was alive. Ambassador Zell boarded the damaged vessel with a medical team, moving carefully through corridors that looked like they had been through a war zone. He found Admiral Jin on the bridge, her uniform torn and covered in soot, but her expression as calm as if she were reporting for a routine patrol. How was all Zell could manage to say as medics began treating the human survivors. How did you do what our combined fleets could not accomplish? Jin looked out through the shattered viewport at the debris field that had once been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Her response was quiet, matter-of-fact, and somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. You asked the wrong question, she said simply. You asked if you could stop them. We asked how to kill them. The distinction hit Zell like a physical blow. While the galactic community had focused on defense, evacuation, and survival, humans had approached the crisis as a problem to be solved through superior violence. The quarantine on Sol 3 was officially lifted that day, making humanity the newest. Members of the galactic community, celebration parties erupted on worlds across the galaxy as the news spread. The ancient threat was gone, civilization was saved, and they had new allies. But in the quiet diplomatic circles, a different conversation was beginning. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a species that treated extinctional-level threats as minor tactical challenges. Had they gained protectors, or unleashed something far more dangerous than the machines they had defeated? The humans, characteristically, didn't seem concerned either way. They were already heading home, their damaged ships limping back toward Earth, ready for whatever threat the universe might throw at them next.